Hey guys, it's Wednesday. Now I would have really liked to have got this video out last Wednesday, but as you might be able to tell, I have once again fallen ill. Seems to be a recurring theme this term. It's either tonsillitis or glandular fever. Either way, not feeling brilliant, but seeing as this is a very important time for all potential candidates to Oxford, I thought I would heave myself out of bed and impart to you my pearls of wisdom. First of all, I'll just start with some general tips for anyone who has an interview coming up, and then move on to a more specific look at interviews for human scientists. I think Dan and Zanny in their videos both made the incredibly important point that interviews don't have to be the very stressful experience that they're often made out to be. There are an awful lot of myths surrounding what interviews at Oxford and Cambridge are like, and a lot of them simply aren't true. What you've got to bear in mind is that tutors don't derive any kind of benefit from compromising your performance. They really don't want to see you stressed. They don't want to see you squirm, because that's really not when you'll thrive. There's an important distinction to be made between, on the one hand, tutors supposedly gaining some sort of sadistic satisfaction from degrading the self-esteem of a 17 or 18-year-old applying for an Oxford degree, and on the other hand, which is far closer to the truth, tutors merely wanting to push students who they know, because you've got to this stage, are incredibly gifted and have the potential to go far if pushed. In spite of me saying that, what I also want to note is that while interviews don't have to be a really stressful experience, it's not necessarily an awful thing if you find that interviews are that they don't go brilliantly for you. Certainly with my first interview, I remember walking out, returning to my room, and very seriously considering returning home and not going to my second interview. Well, thank God I didn't, because now I have a place here. But I just hope that you can take away from that in spite of an interview appearing to go atrociously, it might just be because it's a very different style of learning. A lot of people are here because they're used to being the best. They're used to always having the answers. And at Oxford, what they want to do is push you to a point where you don't have the answer. And for many students, that's tough. Now time for some more specific advice for those students who are applying and being interviewed for human sciences. I will start by detailing my own experience and then build on that with any extra advice from students that I have spoken to studying human sciences. It's not very helpful for you, but I have found out that the interview procedure varies for human scientists depending on the college that you apply to. At New College we had a meeting with the two tutors who would be interviewing us at New College as a group of human scientists, during which they just told us about the process and tried to settle any nerves that we had. We then had an interview with those tutors in college, and for the vast majority of us, an interview outside of college, and that was pretty much it. However, for, I believe, just one of the human scientists who applied to New, there was a third interview, and it sounds quite daunting. I'm quite glad that I didn't have to do it myself, but if they're unsure about whether or not they want to give you a place, what they'll do is they'll give you a panel interview with, I think, 4 human sciences tutors at the Pooling Centre for Human Sciences outside of the college. At other colleges, I've heard that you may have to have an interview with the president or warden of the college. during which you'll just discuss your interests outside of your subject. But to be honest, I can't imagine that having a great bearing on the result of your application, because we are assured time and time again that it really is your subject that Oxford is interested in. So for my first interview, I had 2 tutors. The first was the tutor that I currently have now, and his field of expertise was sociology. So I was presented with a couple of graphs related to sociology. The other tutor was a plant geneticist who quizzed me on some of the assertions that I've made in my personal statement. The second interview that I had was at Mansfield, and I had an ornithologist interview me who is now lecturing me in ecology and evolution. He asked me a series of questions about some eggs that he brought along with him. The other tutor at Mansfield was, I believe, another geneticist who engaged me in a debate on Richard Dawkins' The Selfish Gene, which I mentioned in my personal statement. So now for some extra tips for you human scientist applicants. First of all, I would say you should know your personal statement inside out. If you've mentioned any books on it, then you may just want to take some time flicking through those again, just reminding yourself of the opinion that you formed on the book, and perhaps what opinions might run counter to those expressed in the book. Or I would say to go through your personal statement and also think about what questions tutors might ask, or any assertions that you might have made that might be challenged. Second, be prepared for being presented with new information, for example, graphs. But when you are presented with them, do not let them freak you out. Take the time to breathe when you're given one and really just decipher what it's trying to tell you. Don't be afraid if you just can't figure something out to ask the tutor to clarify it for you. There is no danger in doing so. It's a lot better than you insisting that you understand what it is and later to have that lack of understanding exposed. Third, attempt to make the goal of your interview to delay the answer "I don't know" as long as you possibly can. Essentially, the answer "I don't know" means to the tutors that they have reached the extent of your knowledge. "I don't know" is very different from "can you clarify this for me?" or "can you point me in the right direction?" But what you essentially want to be doing is showing that you could really think about a question that's been posed to you, as opposed to "I can't possibly deal with this." Another tip that quite a few other human scientists have offered is to think aloud. So as opposed to trying to form a very coherent argument in your head and then expressing that to the tutors while sitting in absolute silence, it might actually be more beneficial for you and for the tutor if you express your thought processes aloud whilst coming up with a conclusion, so that you can see how you've gone about forming that. It's very useful for them because it also means if you have made any mistakes, and they can also point you in the right direction. Finally, don't be embarrassed to throw out any of the more sort of bizarre ideas that you might have. You'll often find that tutors are all the more impressed if you can sort of think outside the box, because they're not just looking for the routine answers that you will have been fed during A-levels or the IB. They're looking for your ability to think independently, and so sometimes the most bizarre or most ridiculous answers that you can come up with might be considered some of the best. Though that's not to say that you shouldn't put thought into your answers. Remember, you will be challenged on them, so make sure if you do make an assertion, you can back it up. So that's really all I've got for now. If there are any questions, again, post them below. If you are going through a massive state of panic, please feel free to message me and I'll try and offer you some kind words. And although, just remember that interviews aren't meant to be a horrific experience. If it does go badly, it doesn't necessarily mean you haven't got a place, and even if you don't get a place, it's certainly not the end of the world. See you later, guys.